get to the frickin'. Let's get to the deadly dozen. The 12 labors of Hercules.
And that's sticking, that term labor that you didn't like. It really is sticking.
I will constantly joke about it. I will never let that
Journeys
go.
isn't, but labors is. You know,
okay,
I get
all
it.
Right.
When you were joking about that, I was thinking, I get it. Wait till you do a 400 after a bear crawl, but labors sticks. It's good branding.
All right. So I was half right.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. There's still time. There's still time for that, especially now we're
releasing around the track.
Because the reason we did that was because we've got gym events. So we've got deadly row, ski, cycle, bike erg and air bike. So it's different ways to travel that 400, rather than just running. So that's what we're going to lean into.
I thought the whole point was that this wasn't at the bloody gym. We're going to the track.
Well, it is
the whole point.
But the way we're taking over fitness racing is the way it's going to go is basically you've got your main track event. That's your track meet. That is the Deadly Dozen. Costs us. We put all the budget into that, and it's the big event. But it makes sense that we then have obviously gym affiliates that train for Deadly Dozen, do race simulations. But then obviously there's a massive barrier for people that can't run due to injury. So we've got Deadly Strong, which is obviously similar to Deca, but you've got the Deadly Dozen. It makes sense that gyms these days, you get gyms that have got 20 ergs, like 20 ski ergs, 20 bike ergs, 20 row ergs. They can do Deadly Dozen row, ski, air bike, bike erg. You can get patch systems for.
Do you mix them, or is it just if you pick one, if it's row, it's always row?
It's pick one, but we probably will do like mixed versions. But this will all be one thing we were very clear. What we want to be very clear about is you've got the track meet, which is the Deadly Dozen. That is the brand. That is the event. And these are essentially almost like inter-club sort of club meets, gym meets, which are clearly, done to the highest standard. And we're going to regulate that with our mobile app. Quality assurance is absolutely key, but it's a gym competition. It's like a CrossFit competition of a gym.
Right. Like the way Deca does miles and strongs versus the fits.
Exactly, and it just adds more to, especially the winter season. I mean, we are going international now, so we'll be running events throughout the whole year. But obviously, we want to have, especially in the UK, where weather's terrible, there's going to be a whole lean into.
And can we set the record straight for people who think I'm a very mean person and a mean American, or you maybe your friends, Jason? Let the record show I did have you on in October, 6 months before your first event even happened, because I'm a fan of you and I'm a fan of what you're building here. So I like to give you a hard time because I give everybody a hard time. But let the record show I'm on Team Deadly Dozen.
No, I appreciate that. No, I'm not sensitive, like I say, and actually, I'm very. One thing I'm very keen for is at this early stage, is criticism, and not necessarily just criticism, but people challenging things. So like, why are you doing this? Not everyone just being a yes man, or because that's not
right.
Of course.
All right. So speaking of which, let's talk about Dave. Dave did not like it. Dave Claxton says he's not a fan. What, you listened to our recent show, correct?
I think Dave's a bit butthurt. So I think so basically what.
Hang on a second. We are starting a war, Canada versus England. What's going on?
So no, Dave turned around on the. He called me up, wanted to have a chat, and he was a great guy. And he basically said, look, in all the years I've been in the industry, this is the best race concept I've come across. Quoting him there, so I'm not going to say it, I'm sure he'll watch. He said, this is the best race concept I've ever come across. I don't know why people aren't doing it on the track. Obviously, people do events on the track, but it's become part of the brand. It's a USP. It's fundamental to what we do. And he says he doesn't understand. We've just booked the largest stadium in the UK, which is $100 million stadium. It would be
Wembley.
Small problem. No, it's called Alexander Stadium, Birmingham. They held the Commonwealth Games.
You just booked that.
We booked that. So we sold 100.
Is Oasis going to play there?
Well, that's what we're trying at the moment. Yeah, get
Queen.
Get Queen, bring him back.
Are you going to resurrect the ghost of Freddie Mercury to play there?
So well, that's how impressive we are. But it's so these we can hire these amazing facilities. Tomorrow I could hire 50 venues. It's that easy with athletics tracks, right? So it's a great concept. Now, Dave had sort of 4 problems that he's seen through his massive experience for OCR, which was what we'd done was we did 6 distance labours. And what we mean by distance labours is they move from A to B. So it's like farmer's carry, plate front carry, overhead carry, bear crawl, burpee, broad jump, right? That's what 7 of the 8 Hyrox exercises are essentially moving from A to B. Obviously, some are in place, but the ergs, you're doing 1,000 meters. It's very easy to judge. Albeit, you know, burpee broad jumps has some nuances. Bear crawl, it's easy, you just crawl it. But what I wanted to do with the race, which we sort of discussed, was I wanted it to be key fundamental movement patterns like squat, lunging movements, pressing movements, the 2 Olympic lifts in their most simple form. So clean and press, like people call it ground to overhead, but it's a clean and press, and snatch with a dumbbell. Very low technicality, which is what I've coined as conventional fitness racing, but they are core movements that you do in the gym. And there's certain things that you can do with these movements to make them easier to judge. For example, you could just take the plate overhead and you've got to have air between the head and the plate, for example, like Decker did with the RAM at one stage. However, it detracts from the methodology, which is what the deadly dozen is, the most accessible, loaded training methodology in the world: plates, kettlebells, dumbbells. So if you start saying, oh, you've just got to take the weight overhead, then it detracts from what is proper training, which is elbow extension. So Dave had some suggestions. Some of them were great. Like, for example, rather than just having a wide space where they go up and down for the farmer's carry, you make lanes and they go through a track. And the only reason we didn't use that suggestion was because the setup for Deadly Dozen takes 2 hours. And it's really, so there's what we've got with Deadly Dozen is all of it fits in one large van. So on one side, it's the most scalable race in the world. It takes us 2 hours to set up. On the other side, we've got to balance it looking too minimal. We want it to look the business. So we decided we're just going to have 12 lanes, and they go 10 meters, 5 meters, 10 meters, 5 meters. Now on the rep labors, which are the squats, the deadlift, the push press, he suggested that rather than doing stand up with the weight, you pick the weight up and step forward, and that's one rep.
Right.
So you snatch the weight off the floor and step forward. So it's not about extending your arm, it's about stepping forward. In my opinion, it was a really interesting concept, but in my opinion, it adds more complexity. So I didn't take on sort of any of his suggestions that he said, this is how you'll make your race optimal. So I think when he's then looked at a video where people were going very fast and the judges weren't being strict enough, he was sort of like, well, see, and actually, for the most part, most people's technique, I think technique is the onus first and foremost is on the competitor. And for the most part, people are pretty good. It's just that when people start rushing, we just need to be stricter. We need to raise our standards, basically. And that's what we need to do. It's being identified, especially people are not judging us on the 99% of general folk that are coming down to have a good time and enjoy the race and take on a real brutal challenge, because the feedback is it's often the hardest race people have ever done. And we've had over 1,000 Hyroxers do it now. But like I say, they will judge us on the elite category. They'll judge when we turn around and say, these guys are going for a record, these guys are going for a podium, people will scrutinize us, and rightfully so. But I disagree with his points on like too repetitive, because one of the biggest sellers of the race is it's one of the only fitness races where people go, it destroys your shoulders. And I did that purposely in the second half of the race. So yes, the movements are repetitive, but they don't feel that way at all. Like a dumbbell snatch to a plate clean and press, they feel radically different, even though conceptually they're the same. So he needs to give it a go.
First of all, we're going to have to get you on the show. So I don't know how late you stay up, but we're definitely going to have me, you, and Dave talk this out for sure. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be great.
We do it 5:30 though, which is I think would be 10:30 or 11:30.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I have 3 kids, so I do most of my work in the evening.
Oh, okay.
Aside from being at the gym, so that's fine.
All right, we'll have you on. But we'll wait till this airs first, and he gets to hear it. So I see his point.
So should I do more sort of shit talk, Rhett, to sort of rear it up?
Yes, you should definitely shit talk Dave as much as possible. Dave's also, by the way, it's not just Dave's awesome. It's why I record with him as often as I do, and it's not just OCR. He does that RX1, which is like a fitness kind of combo thing, and he's anyway. Dave's great, but I love the idea that it's at any track. That's one of the, to me, that was the big draw and the big like miss that other people aren't doing. I also understand you want to grow this thing, and a way to grow it is get to it at gyms. I want to back up though. I want to back up because before I talk to you, I had a lot of questions, and you presented what you thought would happen. So here you are, 3 events in. I want to know what you learned. Like, what was the biggest surprise or the biggest like difference that you made between like event 1 and event 3, because you were like, oh, this is how this works in practicality.
So in all honesty, there was a few points leading up to the first race where every now and again, nowhere near a panic attack, I started to panic and go, oh shit, like what if it just doesn't work? Like, so we went for 6-minute waves. So 6 people go every 6 minutes, and we bought double the amount of equipment. So on any lane, labor lane, they have 12 pieces of equipment. So 6 male weights, 6 female weights. And we send 3 men and 3 women at a time. Obviously pairs go together. It's just 1 piece of equipment. And I didn't know whether halfway through the race, it was just going to all bunch. And I'd be running around like shit. People would be like, getting really upset with the race. Because I would, if I was physically stressed, got to a station, there was no kit there, I'd be straight away it'd ruin the race. And that was my biggest worry, like really, really worried about that. But when I sort of working the numbers out on paper and how half the people, this is how many people an hour, and on the other end of the spectrum, I was worried that there'd be no atmosphere because a track's a big place. And if you've only got like 60, 70 people on the track at a time, then it might feel a bit flat. But in all honesty, after the first race, me as a race director there, I basically just stood there and networked, and I didn't. It just ran. Didn't have to do anything.
That's great.
And then the second race, I realised what we got is one thing that I thought was key was, as a race director and founder, I wanted to be the face of it, so I was accountable. So, for example, if there wasn't bog roll in the toilet, then people say that's on me. I should have spoke to the leisure centre and made sure there was more. If anything happens, I'm like, right, tell me, be completely critical. And all the feedback we got was obviously same as like you'd get with other races. Everyone loves the volunteers because of how supportive they are and upbeat they are. Volunteers, people that volunteer for events are inherently nice, friendly people. So they tend to sort of raise everyone up.
Can I ask something really quickly? You're okay being the face, even though you're like this big redheaded like monster from Lord of the Rings, like a character coming out of the bog.
Like Tom. Yeah, well, like I think it like makes it's like when you get when you go to a doctor and he's old, he's got white hair and glasses, you feel more at ease. So it's like,
right.
If I was like a bodybuilder supermodel, people might go, ooh, so everyone feels at ease around me maybe. But no, it's more about just being accountable, and saying that, this is my responsibility. So what I did is I always go live after an event. And I always ask for people to comment. We always ask for people to send emails in and tell us exactly what they thought. Feedback was insanely good as a whole. Just quoting what they've said. People as a whole, we've had hundreds of Hyroxers, hundreds of CrossFitters, hundreds of Deca athletes, like literally hundreds of each. And the consensus is obviously it's all subjective. Some probably still prefer Hyrox, but overwhelmingly we're getting people say it's the hardest thing they've ever done. Overwhelmingly, we're getting people saying that this is now their sort of second race or their first race. Some big Hyrox influencers are now saying like, this is the main race that I'm going to compete in. Whilst I still love Hyrox, still love other races. Overwhelmingly positive feedback on how the race feels, how difficult it is, while still being manageable. What people said was little things like, we had the medals at the finish line. I wasn't there. We had other people handing them out. People said you should be at the finish line. You need more flags and banners at the finish line, make more of a scene. We realized we needed podiums. People said that there wasn't like enough space on certain exercises. The mats were too close together. And it was things like this, for example, we're selling pizzas, hundreds of pizza boxes. There wasn't enough bins. It was little things. So we had a really good idea. I run a race sim that literally 2 nights before or a week before, and had the idea that we need banners on the final curve of the track that tell you what exercise you've got next, similar to what Hyrox do with a banner. And as they come to the labor lane, as they come to the lanes, we've bought signage that just tells them again what they have to do. And obviously the judges can reiterate what they have to do. We extended the timing mats in the center, so we've minimized what would be a rock zone. So there's not really any, really. The whole 100 meters is just timing mats. So you do a loop of the track, you enter wherever's efficient for you to enter. It's very simple, because people often ask me, like, oh, what order are the labors in? I'm like, it's 1 to 12. You literally do a loop, one loop, do the first one loop, do the second one. So yeah, in all honesty, then what we did in the second one, is we reduced it down to 5 minutes for the solos, and it started to bunch slightly, just that 1 minute. And then I've really panicked. I'm like, oh no, we've done all these wave times for the pairs. It's going to be even worse. But pairs was fine at 5 minutes. It works fine because the pairs are faster as a whole. And what we also realized is we had a seeding labor to seed people into waves. Can that off completely, just completely random. So it's less admin for us. So we just put athletes in any wave. It doesn't matter how fit they are or how fast or how slow they are. But basically what we've realized is that the race runs smoothly. It's no effort on the day. It just works like clockwork. And the feedback as a whole is, people have said it's one of the most, if not the most organized race they've been to. They say it just works like clockwork.
So do you do singles, pairs, relays in that order?
Yeah. So the benefit is we release a race a year in advance at the moment. And you know that if you're a solo, you're going to race between 9 a.m. and 12. And if you're a pair, you're going to be between 1 and 3 o'clock. And relays go to the back end of the pairs. We release the exact wait time down to the 5 or 6 minutes 2 weeks before. So pretty much that if you
and you're able to stay on those.
Yeah.
Because I think within even 30 minutes, people would be fine. If you're like, hey, you're going to race between noon and noon 30, get here at 10 to stretch or whatever. I think even that. So if the fact that you get it that close is even better. Do you have people doing, like a lot of folks do at High Rocks, do a single in the morning, relay in the afternoon?
More so relay,
or do most just do one and go home?
Most just do one. More people stay though, because we have, like, in a little event village with pizza, we have beer, we have coffee, and it's quite a good event to watch because it's all on the track. You can see everything. So you're seeing people, suffer around the 400 meter. And this is the one thing I always like, is people underestimate it massively. So you think 400 is nothing. All the high rockers, like I said, they're all saying these 400s are going to be sprints. All the CrossFitters look at the weights and go, these weights are dead light. And every one of them says, like, especially after the bear crawl, like, they're just suffering around the track. That journey is real hard work. So we find a lot of people stay and watch. We get a good 300 people watching. Everyone says it's a really good, race experience. And it just works like clockwork. So to be honest, the biggest takeaway from it all was we see 500 people to event. I get there at 6 a.m. The judges arrive at 8 a.m. So we're all set up by 8 a.m. First wave's at 9 a.m. Last wave is everyone's done usually by about 3:30. I'm back home doing a live video by about 4:30, 5. If I'm in my local track, obviously there'll be travel. And we see 500 people on the event, and it runs like clockwork. And I just stand at the finish line talking to everyone and eating pizza and drinking coffee.
That's how you want it. That's how you want it, dude.
And so in terms of a model, it's obviously I spent about a year writing this and thinking about the setup, but as a model, it runs. The system runs, and that's the biggest takeaway. That's fantastic for us.
So, looking at the website right now, next race is September 14th. That's in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Back again at Macclesfield. So this year they're all at Macclesfield, correct?
I literally can throw a stone and hit the Mac track. And my gym's in Macclesfield. So all of them are in Mac. Then next year it's 2 in Macclesfield, and then around the country. We tried to select locations around the whole of the UK.
What is this about the big stadium that you booked? Which one is that?
Alexander Stadium's the largest athletic stadium in the UK. Some people say, oh, how many people can you have there? It still means the track's the same size, obviously. It's a 400-meter track, but it held the Commonwealth Games. To be honest, it'll be reduced down from that because they won't have all the big tiers that they had at the Commonwealth. But the stadium's unbelievable. It's the biggest athletic stadium in the UK. So we've got Lee Valley, which is where a lot of Olympians train, which is in London. We've got Bristol, which is sort of southwest. Oxford, you'll know from Oxford University. Oh, he's got the map. I was wondering what was happening, then I thought I froze. So that's it there.
So are you going to have more than the normal amount then, or it's just going to be the same?
No, we're just
amount
stretch the
of
day.
races?
No, to be honest, I think that what we'll do everywhere is just 500 competitors.
So where do you max out a sellout on each category?
So what we do is about 140 to 150, about 140 solos, 140 pairs, which is 280 people, and then 20 relay, which is obviously another 80 people, which takes it to 500. Solos by far sell the fastest.
Just seeing where this is. Go ahead.
Birmingham's right in the centre of the country. So it's in the UK, you get Hyroxes in Birmingham, Manchester, Glasgow, and London. So we've got London.
Yeah, Birmingham is where I came for Athics at the NEC, right?
Yeah, NEC's Birmingham, yeah. And then we've got Edinburgh as well, which is up north in Scotland.
So do you obviously you have people who don't show up, so you just oversell by a little bit for those numbers?
Yeah, and it's not actually that high, but yeah, we have people, and we have people selling tickets now, which we have we have a community group on Facebook, and it's like almost 2.5k racers now. We've seen over sort of like, I think about 2,000 unique racers this year. Most of that was just organic, just when we launched September, it sold out in an evening. But yeah, we don't really oversell too much, because we actually find that most people turn up or they sell the ticket if they can't prior.
Right.
And so yeah, we don't see any problems really, and it's very, it's profitable. It costs more than people expect, so people think, oh, it's a track, and it's it's like a wedding. It all adds up. So I thought when I first started, I mean, luckily the ticket sold, because when it actually came down to running the event, you're like, it all adds up. When you've got photographers, you've got the medics, you've got the DJ, you've got the track hire, you've got, and obviously Birmingham has cost me 10 times what Macclesfield cost me, but it's still cheaper than.
And why are you just, is it like, it's not even like a championship race? It's just, you just want to do it there?
Because Deadly, what's going to separate Deadly Doverson from every other race in the world is that we're going to do hundreds of races every year. That's the plan. So you're going to get a good race experience, because one thing that people always complain about is as things get too busy or they're inside, and it can be for a lot of people, it's a good thing. It maximizes the atmosphere. It's hot, it's sweaty, it's thousands of people. Great. But we're going to have that feel that's a little bit more local. So you've got loads of local vendors, we've got ambassadors, so local people that are key influencers within the fitness industry, within the gyms around the area. They're getting all the volunteers in. So we have 60 to 65 volunteers per event. Then we have obviously 500 people. Obviously, a lot of people travel from all over the country to come to Macclesfield, but you'll have more local people, and it'll have more of a local feel at 500 while still having a good atmosphere. But what was the question? Sorry, I'd sort of lost my train of thought as I was waffling.
Why you were doing it at that big event, that big
Oh yes.
gym,
So basically,
field.
yeah. So basically, we want to just spread, like proliferate. So I've always said like spread like a virus, but it's not very good marketing. It's we want to be at as many tracks as we can be. Now we don't want to be at. We at first we thought we're going to be in every little track in every little town, just get as close. But actually, we found the big stadium ones sell rapidly, because people, like I said before, you have professional amateurs, like hobbyist athletes are really keen. If we say, look, you can compete at Macclesfield, which is a great track, it's the track's the same as every other track. However, if we say it's Alexander Stadium and they had the Commonwealth Games there, the tickets sold 5 times faster. Now we want to be, it's going to cost us more. Obviously, you absorb that by putting the ticket price up a little bit. Now we want to be at every major track in the country. We want to be at the major tracks around the world. I mean, apparently there's something like 25, 30,000 tracks in North America alone. Now, if we can identify the major tracks in the key cities, in the key states, and just proliferate. So we're not, you look at most fitness races, it's like we're doing 3 events next year or 4 events. What if Deadly Dozen's doing 500? You know, because it is just, you're only booking out 500 people. You're not trying to get 5,000 people on that event. So your overall turnover is quite small in the grand scheme of things, but your profit margins can be good when you mechanize it all well. And obviously we've developed a business structure now where we are expanding out into the Middle East next year, because we've got Dubai, Kuwait, all them countries. We want to hit America hard, especially after you guys give it a bit of a hard time. We want to, you know, we want to come over and
I told you I might be interested in finding some gym partners or some people that want to put them on here, because I think it is a great event. I think I've said many times, I think DECA's really dropping the ball in picking up even just the wake of High Rocks and this growth of what's called fitness racing. And I would love to see some events happen over here, and specifically in my city. I think when the first High Rocks happens here, which they keep saying is going to be this spring, I think that's going to it's going to wake everybody up. Like once this starts happening in a few more cities, everybody's going to be talking about it in a way that they weren't before. And then events like yours, just by their own nature of like, oh, have you done this? Have you heard of this? How about this one? Right. So yeah, I think it's got a great chance.
Well, the overall feedback, we've had people, so someone signed up for all five of our races that has done over 30 or 40 High Rocks. One of the guys has done, I think, 42. He's like the third leading person, you know, Paul Gillingham, and I think you've had him on, or you might have spoke to him. And we've got a few others that have done a lot. And so far,
is it Billy Butcher?
Billy Blower's done it, and then there's Miles McNulty has done a lot of High Rocks. Right. And there's quite a few sort of names within the High Rocks community, but the feedback is from, we had a woman who's turning 70 do the Deadly Dozen, and the feedback is that I think what the key selling point is fundamentally High Rocks is like that sort of god tier of race, isn't it? That it's so big now. Now, what you need in a fitness race is something that is radically different in its feel, but also feels the same as High Rocks. You're getting that same fitness race experience. And that's what Deadly Dozen does get in a radically different way. So you're not running Ks, you're doing 400, you're doing 12 times 400. You're doing more resistance exercises rather than going from cardio to cardio. It has a completely different feel whilst having that conventional fitness race feel, which I'm sure like Deca Fit has, High Rocks and Deadly Dozen. And that feel is there. I mean, it wouldn't be silly of me, marketing-wise, to look at all the key High Rocks locations in the States, identify the biggest tracks in them locations, and go, there's a Deadly Dozen. When High Rocks sells out and leaves people disappointed, which it does in the UK, not disappointed with High Rocks, but disappointed that they haven't got a spot, I come in and say, well, if we book out this track, there's no reason why I'm not going to do that track. And if we book out that track, I'll do another track, because every track I book out, I'll do 5 more.
Right.
At the end of the day, we can get the fitness industry guys to go, you know, we won't sort of go over it here, but we've got a business model that's incredibly good for them. You know, I consider myself to be a very fair person. That's my, if you would say, what's your motto in business? Be fair. Be fair to them and be fair to yourself, be fair to your business. That's what I live by. Don't be nice, be fair with business. Otherwise, you know, people can take advantage, but be fair. And, basically it's a very good model, and there's no reason why a lot of the big players in the States would just not bite my hand off for it. If we can sell out an event of 500 people, then you do just proliferate rapidly. I mean, my goal is to expand as rapidly as I can, because yes, we've got all the trademarks, yes, we've got intellectual property with the copyright, yes, we've got some pit bulls behind us legal wise, but fundamentally, like, this is the cusp of fitness racing is here. High Rocks has laid the path, and Deadly Dozen being the most scalable race in the world, people are going to look at it and go, "Ooh, he's onto something here." You know, we've seen that in the UK, and obviously now we're expanding out internationally. The biggest protection for my brand is to establish myself and expand rapidly. And you know what's hard for other big races, if you book a big convention center, these things can be booked out years in advance. Lots of money. I could phone up a track right now and go, want to book the track? Good.
Right. Right. So how many more this year?
There's 2 more this year, September and October.
You just don't want to get into the cold weather after that.
The problem is, cold weather's fine. It's just the state of the grass. the grass starts to get a bit boggy, rainy, and volunteers are stood outside. So what we're going to do is we're going to then work on working on the mobile app, which is going to be a hybrid fitness app, fitness racing app. We're going to work on pushing the affiliate network, the education behind it, work on all the infrastructure behind it, whilst I work on, we've got 8 races already booked for next year in the UK alone. Next winter will be in the Middle East. Next year, I'm also leaving space for me to now's the time realistically for me to start making partners in the States, in Europe. So there's a lot for me to do to go, right, let's mechanize this. My legal team are working on it as we speak. I'm speaking to them tomorrow for us to sort of go quite hard into, and obviously we're going to start like our Deadly Dozen podcast. We're going to build all the infrastructure behind the race. Luckily, as you know, I've got like a PT academy, strength conditioning course academy. We've got dozens of training manuals published. We've got a good backbone. I would like to produce more fitness racing qualifications and build up the infrastructure so we are a real powerhouse basically, and expand rapid. I think 8 to 10 races in the UK is probably enough next year for us to have them all booked out, over 5,000 athletes, 600 odd volunteers, hundreds of affiliate gyms around the country, and then that case study, replicate it in different locations. As soon as I get a case study for the Middle East where we're like, look, this is what this person's taken in, then I can contact 100 other major gym owners or influencers and go, look, this is what we've achieved here. We can have you do it in your location.
All right. Well, I'm excited for you. I'm glad you're off and running. I'm glad it's gone well.